Here. All right. Hey, everybody.
All right,
I'm
who do we
Bridget
got
Lynn
on?
Dolgoff, and this is Carrying Stones and Digging Holes Weekly Talk. And we have surprise 4-class thing on Thursdays, and it's going to be with Ken Dost. And we have a series of classes that we're doing. And so we're pretty excited to have him on, and he's going to be talking to us about some stuff that is important for us to know, and hopefully we'll be able to see his board and we'll be able to get everything done because we're making
I'll
a practice
bigger
run
next
at
time.
it. And this is the first class.
Yeah, there you go.
Last week he couldn't make it because we think the bad guys took down his whole Wi-Fi and internet and phone system.
Well, I don't know if it was the bad guys. I think it was just overloaded.
Yeah. So anyway, if you're showing up in the chat room on the side of the video for the class students, I put the blog links in there, some blog links that Ken sent me. I put that on a blog so people can look at those links later on. And also there's a link in there for an older WordPress site of Dostification from Ken Dost that has a lot of information and documents. And as he sends me more
and Marjorie's on. And Marjorie's on too, and she's the one that keeps that one.
Okay.
That Dostifications.
Okay, so we're going to be trying to get all the links to everybody so they can look at everything that's going on. And I'm going to step back and I'm going to let Ken do his thing. So go, Ken, go.
Okay. Hello, everybody. How you doing today? It's hot here today, and no air conditioning, so it's real hot. What we want to do is we want to try to educate people on this, on looking at things in a different manner than what you're used to looking at it. In order for us to progress anywhere, we've got to come to the truths and facts. And trust and truth is not defined as deception and lies. And unfortunately, that's what we've been accustomed to these past 20 years, if not longer. So we've got to come to terms with who we are and what our existence is and where we fit in this existence, and what freedoms and liberties are, and when they're being impeded upon, and how they're being impeded upon. And so when we talk about mortgages, and of course this is how this all started, is we were I wouldn't say brainwashed. We were kept in the dark about new processes and procedures that are patents, automated processes and procedures that replaced the old paradigm, and the old paradigm being human thinking and human thought, actually, where you can call and get an answer from somebody without getting the response, oh, well, that's a legal question. You've got to ask an attorney about that. Well, wait a minute, you're government, so where's the question at here? If the government's supposed to protect me, why do I have to consult with an attorney? But we were put down this path that it was business as usual, and it was the paradigm as usual. And that paradigm being that if you got a mortgage loan, it was the same as your father's and his father's, and that being a mortgage loan negotiable instrument that is signed, sealed, and delivered as one package and sold as one package, and with a bill of sale and endorsement and all these things. And you had ownership, and you paid off your mortgage after 30 years, and that was it. Well, that all changed. There has not been a mortgage like that, a negotiable instrument, since at least 2002. They were good. That's about the time that between that time is when the last ones were being phased out because of certain acts that occurred between 1998 and 2002. In 1998, you had the State Street versus Signature Financial Group ruling, and that ruling was a court ruling where the court ruled, and it had to do with a patent, an automated business method that was called the hub and spoke patent. And what this automated process, this computer program did, was it hunted out and sought every possible tax shelter and tax incentive or tax advantage you could find. That's what it did. And the court, in their infinite wisdom, or payoffs, I would say, decided that these automated processes were patentable. Now, in order for something to be patentable, it has to produce a concrete and tangible result, meaning something that's real, something physical. And the court, and I don't see it in any of these patents, but the court ruled that the answers or the spreadsheet or the calculations, the algorithms, the calculations, the algorithms that were printed out before for a broker, that was the concrete and tangible result that a broker could take to his investors and advise them on. So that is your concrete and tangible result. So 1998, automated business methods became patentable. 1999, the International Trademark Treaty Law. That says that anybody can make use of your trade name. In other words, Kenneth W. Doss, all capped, without my permission in doing so. In 2001, you had the enactment of UCC 9, the revisions to it, which a lot of people think is secure transactions, and it is secure transactions, but it's what it's based on. It is based on patents, trademarks, and copyrights, intellectual properties. And the crux of it is that intellectual properties, patents, copyrights, and trademarks can be decomposed, meaning broken down into components, fractionalized, meaning in slices, securitized, meaning putting it in pools and packages and selling it, collateralized, giving value to it, and the most important one is repeatedly rehypothecating these things. So that was the other ruling, the other action, and the other event. And then one other event, and the biggest event I think that ties into all these things that made everything possible for where we're at now, is the 2001 deregulation and preemption policies by the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. We didn't. Everybody should have been screaming and yelling about this thing in 2001, because what it did, or what they did, they enacted policies that were interpreted, their interpretations of judicial rulings. So you had the Homeowners Expansion, or the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, which is the final act that killed Glass-Steagall. You had a bunch of other acts that legislative acts that the OCC interpreted into policy. And so what the OCC did was they basically wiped the table clean of everything back to 1861 to the National Banking Act, which was enacted by Lincoln, and it was ironically it was Lincoln who created the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. And what it was it took security paper and the printing of securities and the ink and everything and the process of that out of the hands of Treasury and put it in the hands of the bankers. It never got repealed. And so they rolled everything back to them. So obviously you could see where there's going to be a problem. You take the security aspect of this and pull it out of Treasury's hands and put it in the hands of the bankers. Obviously there's going to be a problem with that. Second thing they did was preemption. They terminated all consumer protections and government protections for consumers for banking abuse, and forbidding other branches of government from taking actions against the banks, and also limiting our rights of action against the banks. So what they did is you had one agency, the federal government here, who basically abandoned their oaths and duties of the Constitution and prevented other government agencies from doing anything. And I remember back in that time frame, there was a lot of agencies that were pitching fits that wanted to sue the banks, and the OCC said, no, you can't sue them. The OCC got involved in several cases and terminated those cases. And the OCC ruled that they were the only ones who can have any kind of action, any course of action against the banks. Well, that's a problem, because they also said that the business of banking is our most important industry and it must be protected at all costs. And thereby, and what they mean by all costs is that no interferences by anyone. So what they did essentially is they took away our freedoms and liberties, gave them over to the bankers, the business of banking and subsidiaries and affiliates there too. So that whole line of business that includes financial services, insurance, et cetera, anything that's in that line. And they stripped away any fiduciary duty that they would have had to us. And they basically dropped us off naked into the desert with no protections whatsoever, no knowledge of anything, of any of this stuff, because none of this stuff was disclosed to us. And if you recall, 2001 was also the year that our attention got turned to the war on terror. Enough said. I think that's where we didn't take notice of what was going on what we should have taken notice of what's going on here domestically, because all our eyes were looking over on the foreign war on terror, but we weren't looking at the fact that we had the business of banking operating without any oversight whatsoever, and behind this protected wall of the OCC. And it's real important because that was when the economy as we knew it got thrown out. The old paradigm got thrown out. So what they were doing was they were instituting an entirely different economic, financial, and you can say governmental platforms on how our system was going to be run. This was really, some people say it was the world order, and I guess you could say yes, it was the world order. Because this is on a global basis. But what they did was they incorporated all of these patents and automated business methods and created the platform so that everything runs automatically. By artificial intelligence. It was called rules-based and case-based artificial intelligence. So what they did was it's predictive. It's predictive, future predictive programming. And so you put this layer of intellectual artificial intelligence in place, and you put all these business methods on top of it for governmental processes and agencies, business of banking, business of insurance, business of credit and lending, and all these things are being laid on top of this artificially intelligent platform that together makes this big conglomerate. I guess people call it the matrix. And so what they did was they took the thinking process out of humans, and they put it on a computer screen. I don't know if many are aware of this, but when you talk to your servicer, you talk to those loan servicing people, what they're doing, I don't know if they're all doing it, but I know a lot of them are, is when they're talking to you and you give your responses, the computer program is analyzing what you're saying so they can put it on a computer screen for what the servicer can read back to you. I mean, so what they've done is they've taken all the thinking process been taken out of the equation here, and been thought out by the computers, and so everything's just kind of regurgitated from whatever's on a computer screen, and that's a problem because what you have here is you have a system that is totally fixed now. It's just a system that has been entirely fixed from the very, very beginning on all levels, where the government, you've got our legal system that is automated, that is all designed by foreign agent law firms and intellectual patent law firms and the business of banking. And they're all integrating with one another to where they have all this communication that the entities, that is they, the business of banking, the attorneys and the patent owners, and the technologies. Well, you know, you're interlocking all this stuff together with government and insurance and all these things together. And we're not in this equation. And we're not in this equation because we weren't informed of these things. We weren't informed that, hey, we're getting a new economic system here, and this is what you need to know. This is the basis. It's kind of like, you know, you first got a job or you first got a checking account. You got to learn how to write a check. You got to learn how to balance your finances and everything, right? This is the same thing. This is just as important as that. And we should have been informed of this. And what these things are called is, it's referred to as a voluntary, let's see if I get this right now, voluntary system of standards, processes, sophisticated processes and procedures that we were incorporated into by reference. So what that means is they're saying that we voluntarily agreed to these automated processes, this artificial intelligence, and that because we voluntarily agreed to it means that every other thing that comes along added to that is just incorporated by reference, and there's no need to inform us of these things. But the problem is that we were never informed of this from the very beginning. It is indisputably impossible for anybody to volunteer agreement to anything that they have no knowledge of, especially something that's been concealed from them. So let's take that to the mortgage loan for a minute. When you signed these mortgage loans, we signed them on the basis that we thought these were negotiable instruments, that we had ownership in real property. This is what we thought. This is what we were told. This is what the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac uniform instrument, that document that you signed, that's what that document says. It says that this is a transparent agreement that contains no hidden terms or conditions per the requirements upon which the uniform instrument was created, and that we were protected. That we didn't have to worry about negotiating these things. We didn't have to worry about lenders or that's what I'm looking for, crooked lenders, basically. We didn't have to worry about those things. We didn't have to worry about hidden terms and conditions, because that was how this instrument was built. That's what the uniform instrument was created for, specifically for that. And so, you know, we signed these things on that basis and thought we had ownership of real estate and real property, the American dream, right? And that's just a total lie. It is a complete 1000% lie. They did not inform us that there is a hidden agreement that attaches to mortgage electronic registration systems, which purports to be mortgage to real property, right? It's not a mortgage to real property. That's a lie. That is deception. It's a misleading representation and false designation that does not accurately describe the transaction. The actual transaction is left out of that contract by one little symbol, and that one little symbol is a circle R, and that circle R represents a registered trademark. Now, I wouldn't have known anything about that back then, but I didn't know anything about trademarks at all. But somebody would have caught that. Somebody said, "Hey, wait a second here. There's a problem here," and the problem is this. The problem is that that's by not being disclosed of that circle R, not having the pertinent material representations of the transaction. First of all, we weren't confident into, we didn't have capacity to sign these agreements because we weren't signing a mortgage loan. What we were executing was we were executing what in fact, in truth, is an investment contract where we are the lenders, we're lending the collateral, and they're the actual debtors. But what they did is they flipped this thing around on us and they said, well, no, this is a mortgage loan. No, it's not a mortgage loan. What these things are is they're converted commercial lease agreements that are that are shipped over to through Allied Irish Bank through First American Title over into the British Commonwealth, and we're going to depth down that later. But these are not mortgage loans. What they are is they're lease agreements. They're leases. They're a lease to a future repurchase, meaning a foreclosure. So what they did was they stripped us of our ownership, and they did that through this hidden agreement that attached to that Fannie and Freddie document. And that hidden agreement is, I think it's posted on I think, Bridget, you have that posted, right? The Merged Nations Bank agreement, I believe that's there.
Yeah, it's
that
on
link,
the
yes?
it's on the blog link. If people go to the top link in the chat, and it for the person that called in, it's on coe-llc.com blog, and it's Ken Douse links. But yeah, so it's on there. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that I gotta get a drink of something. My mouth's getting dry. So what we have there, that mortgage, that Merged Nations Bank agreement, what that is that is agreement that basically says that, okay, we're going to give you all rights, title, and interest to everything we own. We're going to give you the rights to our personal property, our intellectual property, our real property that we own now or ever will own, all licenses of use to it, all our common law rights of use to it, and we're going to give everything over to you, everything over to a nominated agent, which is an attorney. We didn't know this, okay? We didn't agree with this. And what we're doing is we're giving them all rights, title, and interest into, hopefully you can read this, into our trade name and our signature. So we gave them the rights to impersonate us, and that's what they're doing. So what they did was, when we signed those agreements, we signed it as first, middle, last. That was the block letter text, and then we put our signature below it. So we signed it in body and soul and said, okay, we voluntarily agreed to this Fannie and Freddie document, but we didn't know that there was a hidden agreement to this agreement, and that hidden agreement is that Merged Nations Bank agreement that says that we're going to give you everything. We're going to give you ownership of everything. You have control of everything. So basically, we gave them blanket powers of attorney so that they can do anything they want to with us. And so what you have now is you have a mortgage loan that's not to real property, but it's a mortgage loan in trade name. Now, what is so important about trade name? Why is this, hopefully you can see that. Why is first, middle, last so important? Everybody seems to think it's a fiction, right? Everybody says that, oh, it's not ours, it's theirs, it's the government's. It's not ours, and that's not true. First of all, it's not a fiction. A fiction is something that, if it's a fiction, it's not going to affect your life. Well, you know, it's this name right here, that all caps name, that is defaulting on people and foreclosing upon people, and how that, and the interaction of that name. It is that name right there, and the fact that we don't have control of that name that is that's foreclosing upon us, and stealing our assets, and evicting us from our houses, and taking our kids from us, and arresting us. It is that name right there. So that's not a fiction. If it affects our lives, it's not a fiction. Okay, and first of all, next of all, first, middle, last is the form and soul. First, that goes with first, middle, initial, last, upper, lowercase. This is a derivative name. This is a derivative name that was created from the birth name. In my case, Kenneth William Dost. It was created from that. It's a derivative form of that. And so when we talk about derivatives, we're talking about these things here. And what's important about this name is that this is your name. You're responsible for this name. This is your public personality. This is the name that you go through life with, and that is rated and graded with credit agencies and so on and so forth. And so this is a reflection of your character and credibility, right? And so this is your name. This is yours. You're responsible for it. So you suffer all the consequences. When you make bad decisions, you suffer the consequences for that. I mean, when you do good decisions, you reap the rewards of it. But the question is, who pays for the harms and damages that I have to suffer and you have to suffer for actions committed by another person that we had nothing to do with, but are made to suffer these consequences, such as the economic collapse? We had nothing to do with that. I didn't do anything that collapsed the economy. You didn't either. But yet we were suffering because of it, right? It's not but so if we talk about freedoms and liberties, to me, freedoms and liberties is the simple fact that, you know, for the pursuit of happiness is what I just said. I have a right to, my actions are, the actions I take are from my own free will decisions. And I'm responsible for those decisions. Whether good, bad, or indifferent, I'm responsible for myself, the consequences for the bad and reap the rewards for the good. But you have to ask the question at some point in time. If we have freedoms and liberties, then who is responsible for my harms and damage when the economy collapsed? Who's responsible to you? Nobody was responsible. Nobody was. As a matter of fact, what they did was a stereotype was created. So now when you're fighting foreclosure, what are you? You're just a deadbeat liar and a cheat, right? And everybody sees it that way. So, you know, I'm convinced that in the years I've studied this, I'm convinced that and actually I know I can prove it really, that the economy was specifically engineered to be collapsed. And we'll get into more of that a little bit later, but that it was designed to collapse, and it was designed so that we had no remedies here, because we've got a court system that believes that these things are mortgage loans when they're not, and you can't even defend them. Now, here's the thing about this. What we're dealing with here is we're dealing with a new way of looking at ourselves, not a new way of looking at ourselves, but by defining ourselves on who we really are. What is that first, middle, last name? What is this first, middle, initial, last name? What is this thing? It's a derivative name, yes. It's taken from the birth name, yes. But what is it? What is it really? This is just a body of living matter. This is a natural person right here, just a body of living matter. That's all it is. Without union to this, meaning without common law, unencumbered rights, title, and interest to this, that's all this is, a body of living matter. A lot of people say, oh, that we're dead. No, we're not dead. It's not that we're dead. It's that we're incompetent, and it's that what's on the books is this first, middle, last name, which is the form that was created, abstracted from this body of living matter, which is the soul. Okay, we'll get into that later. But this first, middle, last name, it's a non-human factor of production. Okay, it's non-human. That means that now it's not living, but it's not dead though either, is it? It's not living, but it's not dead. It's just a non-human factor of production. But a factor of production means that this is the credit, the capital, the assets that funds everything. Right here, this is what funds it. This is the value right here. Because we don't have lawful money, do we? Everything's built on credit. But where's the credit come from? It comes from right here. This is the energy. This is the energy that funds everything, that is being kept away from first, middle, last. And so see what you have here is you have intermediaries that have gotten between these two names and is controlling this upper name. So this person, the body of living matter, we're the suckers that have to get stuck with all of that, right? We get stuck with all this stuff. And we think that this guy here is the debt slave. He's not a debt slave. If this guy is the lender of everything, this guy's providing the capital for everything, that's not a debtor, is it? It's only a debtor because we've been conditioned to think that this is a fiction and to think that, and to not really see the association that there is between these things. Now, these things are important because this goes back to God created this. Body and soul. We were created body and soul. That's why we were born in body and soul. But if you think about it, when we were an infant, we really had no need for our soul, did we? Because we were just peeing and pooping, right? That's it. That's all we were doing. We didn't know anything else. So the form of the living matter, this here, was abstracted from us by the pledge that our parents made. That created that certificate of birth. Okay, that certificate of birth is not a debt slave. It's technically speaking, what it is, it's an industrial property. It's an intellectual property. And we'll get all into the birth name later, but we'll get that later. That's what all this arises on, though. So what you have here is what I mean by abstracted by sensible logical form. This is your psychology. This is your metaphysics. These are all your scenarios. Your investments, all of the things that go to make up the system, that go to infrastructure, go to finance, go to credit, go to everything, go to our psychology, our mental psychology, and how they're fabricating and how they're molding it to their needs, not ours. I mean, not a single one of us would have signed that mortgage loan had we been disclosed of that Merged Nations Bank agreement. There's not one, even a half-foot moron would not agree to give everything you own to attorneys or to the business of banking with nothing in return. Nothing at all in return. None of us would do that. And so this is important because this is so important. And the reason why the past 20 years has become so important is because of UCC 9, because they were able to rehypothecate this, because they were able to take this name and slice it up in all different pieces. So they took your real property, that mortgage loan that you thought, and we all thought was a signed, sealed, and delivered package, right? That was, sold to investors as a whole package, and that's what we think this thing is, but it never was that. What it was they took that piece of property, they created mineral rights on it, they created mobile air rights on it, they created water rights on it, they created easement rights on it, they created surface transportation rights on it, they created complementary deeds and supplementary deeds and complementary supplementary deeds, and all these deeds on this thing. So they sliced this up into all kinds of different slices. They fractionalized it. They fractionalized that piece of paper, and they used that name to they used this name to say, okay, that we agreed to that. And they took all these different slices and they scattered them all over the world, all over various jurisdictions. So, and they sold them, and they sold them. And they could sell them time and time again. Because why? Because we're dealing with we're dealing with abstracted ideas here, financial growth and financial wealth that is made possible by UCC 9 that affords these bankers and lawyers to be able to take this name and create anything value. They could do patented processes and put value to this thing so that it's invaluable. If anything, to prove that this is a soul and to prove that this is invaluable, all you gotta do is look at patents and trademarks. It's proven there. by the amount of times they slice us up and sold us off. Now, so what you have now is you have a slice sitting in the state, in Oregon, or wherever you're at, that is the debt side. That's saying, oh, you defaulted. You know, you signed this mortgage loan, right? It's their signature, right? And we can't even bring up the fact that, well, wait a second, this is not a mortgage loan. I tried doing it. I can't raise this fact in court because that Fannie and Freddie document is deemed an unimpeachable contract, meaning the way that this contract was formed, like I said earlier, it was formed to have no hidden, mandated requirements, no hidden terms or conditions, everything, all transparent disclosures, everything up front, okay? And because of that, that's why the court made the court rule, basically, that this contract is unimpeachable, because of the fact that everything up front, we were given all accommodation to, as far as, you know, we were given protections to say, hey, there are no hidden terms. You don't have to worry about scrupulous lenders or unscrupulous lenders or anything. We've taken care of that. It's banned from this. And everything is here. It's up front. Everything is publicly disclosed, and it's put into code so that it's enforced and everything. So there's nothing hidden here. And because of all of this is why the court deemed that Fannie and Freddie document unimpeachable. So so this is one of the reasons why you can't defend these things in court. You can't raise the contract as an issue because the court won't hear it. The court won't allow it. But here's the problem with that. You can prove very easily. All you got to do is lay down Fannie and Freddie document, that MERS Nations Bank agreement, and the cut sheet of the MERS trademark, and say that's bullshit. This contract is totally impeachable. It's impeachable by the hidden terms and agreements of this MERS Nations Bank agreement, and the fact that the Circle R and the actual transaction is not represented. But you can't raise that in court. But that's a problem, though, isn't it? Because if you can't raise this in court and prove that this thing's not an illegal contract, then where is any sense of justice whatsoever? There is no justice then, right? There can't be no justice. If you can't raise the fact that this thing is unlawful, and you've got attorneys that are filing actions against these things, they're committing an unlawful act by filing these foreclosures, because they're relying on the unimpeachable contract rule to push the process through, for MERS to push the process through a foreclosure, right? And it's unlawful. It's illegal too, because it's an impeachable contract. So how do we get around this stuff? What do we deal with? How do we deal with this?
Hey, kid.
I found. Yes, ma'am.
It's Bridget. Hey, so I just kind of got something. I had this like visual in my head. I love listening to you talk because I get these great visuals. But I noticed.
Okay.
Well,
go ahead, shoot.
Well, okay. So the way that you set up the board, so you have the capitalized name, which is, you know, all the systems that they're creating, mostly monetary, you know, systems. And those cap name goes on everything that you have, right? So you have a driver's license, you have a social security card, you have a bank account, you get a driver's license, you get an AT&T account for a cell phone. You know, they do the same thing to everything that you have. But then, you know, what's interesting is that they always make you sign the agreement, the body of the living matter. They make the body of the living matter authorize their ability to do these things to you. So your social security card is not valid unless you sign it. Your driver's license isn't valid unless you sign it before they give it to you. You know, all these things. So it's like, even though they've separated you, they've also gotten you to authorize their behavior and their
right. What they did was they did that through hidden agreement. It's acknowledged within the trademark agreements, and we'll get to this, not in this class, but the next one. We'll go through. We'll get together a whole set of documents to show you exactly where it says these things in the trademark agreements. They acknowledge that this first, middle, last, the grantor, the presumed grantor, that this person here, or this non-human factor, here's all caps name, is the owner of all rights, title, and interest. I'm sorry, take that back up. That this person, first, middle, last, the grantor, is the owner of all rights, title, and interest to this, the first, middle, last, all caps, but for the fact that we voluntarily gave all rights. Well, we voluntarily pledged everything to them. Well, of course, I didn't do that. You didn't do that either. We didn't know about this. So you're right. So what they did by doing that is, it's even worse than what you're saying there. What's worse about this is that we gave them the rights to impersonate us, so that they could put our signature to anything they want to and not have to tell us about. So what they're doing, and because of the money generating value of this, there's no limit to this. Okay, understand that there's not a deadline. Oh, you can use it. You can slice up in pieces 5 times. No, you could slice this thing up into pieces as many times as they want to. So they can come up with any kind of configuration, any kind of revenue generating patent, any kind of patent that works around codes and statutes or regulation.
And they can make up new stuff in the future, and they just keep making it up as they go along. Like in 5 years, they can go, hey, let's do this thing. It's our new financial thing.
Right.
Oh, we've got 7 billion people on the planet. Let's slice and dice.
That's right. There's no limit to these things. There's no cap on how many times you can slice and dice these things. The only caveat to this thing is that they have open license to use it, because we've never captured this. We've never captured this. We think that we're body and soul. We think that we're a man, and we're not a man. We're not a woman. What we are is we're body of living matter. Until these two things right here, this first, middle, last is put with this, with no interference whatsoever. It's indivisible, no encumbrances whatsoever. Then we're just the body of living matter, and we don't even have a physical existence. To have this body, soul, form, and matter. These are the components that are constituents for the physical existence as a man. You have to have both of these in union to be able to be an individual personality. This is just a natural person, but to be an individual personality, that's what we're talking about. So when people say, "Oh, I'm a man, I'm a sentient man," no, you're not. You're not a man until you put these two things together and take all interference away from there. Because how can you be an individual personality when you've got powers of attorney and hidden powers of attorney that are controlling the actions, not of you, but basically this stuff? Well, they are controlling the actions of you because they're controlling this, right? Right? Does that make sense? How can they do that? How can you claim yourself to be an individual? You can't. We're not individual personalities, but we're not dead. We're just incompetent. We don't have the knowledge of what this is. What is this thing up? That thing, this thing called the soul. What is that? What is it? It's our energy. It's part of us. This is how we were created. This is the atom of the universe that was given a name, right? When we were named, right? And so we have rights to this thing. Why is it ours? Because if Kenneth William Doss, little infant, crying and pooping and peeing, wouldn't have given my first breaths, then that birth certificate would have never been created, would it have? The only reason why the birth certificate or certificate of birth was created was because I was proven to be born living. That's what created that birth certificate, that certificate of birth, which, of course, by the derivative, created the first, middle, last. So this would not exist if it wasn't for my first breaths. So I have all rights to this thing, do I not? Yes, I do. It's mine. Now that doesn't mean other people can't have it, because obviously other people can't have it, because there's no physical connection to me. There's no physical connection to me, but it's a part of me. It's a part of me that needs to be with my body of living matter, so that I can be an individual personality, that I can have a constituents for physical existence. So here's the thing. So what they have is they have us in the government record as this all caps name, not as a decedent, but it's a non-human. It's non-human. It's non-human. It's not dead. It's just non-human. They don't see this person or this natural person as having intelligence or the knowledge, you could say, to know what this person is and what the relation to form and soul is. And this is what this all comes down to. It all comes down to this. And you'll see this in patents. I'll show you patents where it specifically talks about all these things and how all these things lay out. And so what you have here is this. we're investors, okay? We should be getting dividends. We should be getting royalties, all these things, because we're the investors. We're the owner of this. But because of that Merged Nations Bank agreement, because there was a nominating agent that was put between us and the banks, that nominating agent, which is an attorney, controls everything. They have ownership of us, people. And the reason why they do this, why they have this, is because of patents and trademarks itself. Patents and trademarks, it's very, very hard to get a patent or trademark without having an attorney attached to it. Yeah, you have to have an attorney attached to these things. And so when you're talking about banking patents and infrastructure,
Hold on a second. Ken got tossed off and he's rambling. Hold on. Let me go and see if I can find. Hold on one moment, please.
Yeah, I kept seeing a message that he had low bandwidth.
Well, yeah, he has low bandwidth. That's why I had everybody kind of turn off their volume and their microphones and stuff to try to help his bandwidth. But
Okay.
last week we were going to have the class, and then what happened is that he, everything went down, his whole internet and everything, and he actually had to have a company come in and actually redo everything.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah.
I'm sorry. That was probably my fault. I have that impact on technology, and I tried to dial in last week.
Well, it wasn't you. His internet went down like before it. But let me just call him and see if I can get a hold of him. And he has pretty intense energy too. He short circuits a lot of stuff.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
But he knows so much, you know. Okay, let's see if I can call him and he'll notice it's me.
am I on? Can you hear me?
Oh, good. You got back. Sorry. Okay, I was just calling.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I was just calling you,
Yes,
so ignore that.
I heard you.
Okay. All right, just ignore it.
Okay, well, I was afraid that was going to happen. I mean, that was bound to happen sooner or later.
Yeah, it's all
That
right.
was bound to happen. I mean, I was on with Australia, a bunch of people from Australia last week, and I think the thing dropped around 4 or 5 times. It might drop again now. It's because my connection's unstable. I don't know why that is, but I think it's our internet up here stinks.
Yeah, and
Satellite, actually.
the other thing too is I had
Actually,
people.
satellite and CenturyTel and
Yeah, and I had people turn their, if
Huh?
they could, I had people turn their videos and their microphones off too, to kind of help your bandwidth a little bit, or at least with me. So, oh, where's he at? Oh,
well, and
there he is.
that's
Okay.
why I'm not gonna. That's why what we're going to do in the next class is I'm going to give you the documents and you're going to show the documents, because if I show the documents, they're going to get my bandwidth will go down and I'll get disconnected. So you know, documents that we're going to show in the next one, I'm going to have, you know, I would Corey walk you through them and Corey grab so you could show them, because I'll lose you. I won't be able to share, because every time I try doing that, it'll disconnect. So that's why I'm trying to do the whiteboard here, and go that route. Okay, so where were we at?
We were talking about you know, bringing the two names together, that, you know, they have ownership over something, you know. So this is kind of an interesting thing I was thinking about, like, you know, we know that they sort of will tell us things, right? And I was thinking about, you know, like, I'm not, you know, a big Bible person or anything like that, but what does it say in Genesis? The first thing that was created, what was the Word? And if you don't know the Word, right, you don't know the language, you don't know what they've done.
Yes.
You don't know what they've created,
Right.
that you don't know about.
Right. Right, and it's true. That's what you do. So you're kind of, what we're doing here is, if you want to put it to biblical terms or scenarios, or spiritual scenarios, is that we're making ourselves. We've been found to be living, and we're rising. We're basically born again, risen as a physical existence. And that's really what we're doing, because think about it for a second. When we were separated, we created that birth certificate of birth, and they separated and took our soul and our form, and they extracted form from us. So in other words, Kenneth W. Dawes, upper lowercase, the infant of living matter, in the form of in the non-human form of Kenneth William Doss, all caps, when they did that, we didn't have this, we didn't have the intelligence to know what soul was, and our parents certainly didn't because they were misinformed. And so we had, the way I look at it is they were kind of borrowing our energy from us until we turned 18 and we come back and grab it. And we, of course, we didn't know that, right? Because we weren't informed of these things. But to sit there and say that this is, I think we've made a big mistake by sitting there saying that this is a debt slave, and I think we made a lot of mistakes. I think that we've got to we like to blame people a lot. I see that we love to blame government. We love to blame a lot of people for things that have happened. But really, at the end of the day, though, I mean, these are things that are spiritual. These are things that relate to the body and soul, and understanding of who we are and what our energy is, and that we do have power. We're not. We don't live with it. I'm at where I'm sitting right now. I just live in this. My existence is not in this square feet that I'm in. It's in the existence of how I project myself out there. So like I'm projecting myself to you guys right now. You're not here with me, right? I'm projecting myself on my voice, and wherever you guys are is where you're receiving it. Well, it's the same thing as saying that it's the same thing that my energy's out there in other ways, right? And that's what's happening here. We're the ones that are the part of the community that build the community, that are supposed to be served by government for the community's benefit. And so we're in this common, what would you call it? Well, we're in this common cauldron, basically. We're all in this common marketplace, and we're all participants in this common marketplace. We're not debt slaves. We're stock owners. We're option owners. We're securities owners. We're land. We're owners of all these things. And the only reason why we're not owners of all these things is because, one, we've been misinformed about what the value of that name is, and that value, and if there is value with that name, and two, by a system that has been engineered to make government employees incompetent because they don't know what's going on, to deceive government employees, in some cases to pay off government employees or give revenue streams to judges and attorneys, and to deceive the public. I mean, this is a serious charge that we're talking about here. We're talking about an organized, concerted effort by the business of banking and foreign agents for that basically I would say is a coup d'etat that overthrew our nation, overthrew other nations by these automated processes, by the theft of our identity and the theft of our name. But it's our fault though too, because we don't understand any of this stuff. And so it's time that we start to, the only way that we can get somewhere with this stuff, and we can get somewhere with this stuff, is by understanding that there is value in the name. And that it's very important these names go back together again. It's very important that we understand the union that we're talking about between the body and soul in the spiritual sense is not the same union that is the common law union between Kenneth W. Doss / Kenneth W. Doss, all uppercase, because it's that slash in the middle that they can get in between, right, in common law, and that's what they're doing. And so when we say that when we talk about common law, we have common law rights of use, unimpeded except for liens by laws and presumptions of voluntary agreement. Well, wait a second here. Again, it's indisputable that I can't voluntarily agree to anything that I had no knowledge of. So what we have something that's kind of really simple. In some respects, real simple, because all these contracts we're talking about, all these mortgages, all these bank accounts, all these investments, all these securities, all these insurances, all these bonds, everything is created out of patents and trademarks. All these bonds are patents. The business of banking is patents. Business of insurance is patents. Business of government is patents. And the trademark products that spin off these patents, because everything's commerce, right? All law is commerce, right? And so when you realize and you start to understand how these agreements and trademark rule every aspect of our lives, because this is the origin, this is the hub of everything, and that there is acknowledgement within these agreements that this person, first, middle, last, and these two, that the upper lowercase, he's the owner of this, sole owner, all birth, title, and interest. But for that pledge, what does it become? It becomes a matter of overturning that pledge. And so when you talk about constitutional protections, this is what I find really cool. This is what I find really neat. We have all these people that are arguing constitutional rights and case law and all that stuff. We don't have any constitutional rights, and they're right, we don't. How do we get those constitutional rights? Well, we have to get this guy here, first, middle, last. This guy here, he's got to be joined to this guy. Because when he's joined to this guy, then he has an existence. But this guy is separated from this guy because of the way the system's set up, by powers of attorney, the way the government system's set up, and so on and so forth, and by trademarks. We are not a trademark. This is not a trademark here. It's a common law trademark, yes. It's a common law trademark when they want to domesticate you and when they want to come after you for a lawsuit or something. Then this is a common law trademark that is impeded upon, encumbered because it's a lien. Okay, but by and large, what this is an unregistered trade name that's our public personality. That's how we go through life with this thing, and it's ours and it's our responsibility. And so you're not going to find this name in trademarks. You're not going to find it in trademarks. You're not going to find it in patents. So don't bother looking. So you're going to say, well, how do we prove it? We don't have to really prove it because if you know the lender, you know the servicer, you could track the chain of title of these things and where the chain of title actually goes. But more importantly, you know, these are, because of the 1999 trademark treaty, they are, this trade name, all they have to do is, it has to be in connection, keyword, in connection with patents, in connection with the goods, services, and products of others, in connection with the trademark, the copyright of Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. So what do you mean when we say in connection? Well, okay, let's see, a customer list, a loan list, a warehouse list, any kind of list that they can securitize, right? Because anything that your name is on, what happens to it? It gets securitized and it gets sold in the marketplace, right? It gets value put to it, right? And so that's what's happening here. So you have the control of our identity and the controlling the investments, controlling the flow of everything. And what they're leaving behind is the debt side of this thing. So what they did is they took our public personality, the equitable part of our public personality, along with our signature, into the private, let's not say private, let's say the undisclosed, not represented, concealed patents and trademarks, so that they can enslave us and so that we can exist for the business of banking and foreign agent attorneys. That's the only reason that we exist. I'm sorry, I don't like existing like that. I'm not going to exist like that anymore, and we don't have to. Now, see, in patents, what's nice about patents and trademarks is when they meaning banks or lenders or whomever, are doing these agreements and trademarks, they're saying that you and I as the grantors, again, acknowledging that we have all rights, title, and ownership, but for the fact that we pledged it, you know, they're instructing Bank of America or whoever it is instructing the Commissioner of Patents and the Commissioner of Trademarks to make the necessary recordations and to the government record and all government agencies that are attached to it, meaning the courts and everybody else, of this recordation. And the recordation mean what? That you gave up all your rights to another assignee or another grantee. So the Commissioner of Patents and Trademarks being instructed to record it in that manner. So what are we doing? All we're really doing in the very simple context of this is saying, listen, I'm Kenneth W. Doss. I'm the living body of living matter here. And that name there, that all caps name, that's mine. I have all rights to that. That's mine. You stole that and you took that into your private. You took my public personality into your private, and I have every right to come after it. That's the equitable side of me. And I agree with your agreements. I am the owner of all rights, title, and interest, but I did not agree to pledge everything to you. So by the very nature of me filing this, what I'm doing is I've given myself existence, a physical existence that does a couple of things. One, it refutes all powers of attorney by the very nature of me making this recording. Because what am I doing? I'm coming here as Kenneth W. Doss. I'm saying, hey, that's mine. I'm killing all these powers of attorney in between, right? Number one. Number two, when I sign this thing, I'm signing it upper lowercase that's attached to this. So what do I have now? I put the two together. So now I have a physical existence. Now I'm in the book of life, so to speak. And that's what we have to have, because otherwise we have no rights. Does that make sense? Yes, no, maybe, could be.
Yeah, and another thing too is that we don't have any of the assets that they've created from us and bought and sold and whatever else. I mean, that's attached to that uppercase name. That's the energy that they've derived from it, is also the wealth.
That's right. That's right.
Not just the debt, but the wealth.
Think is, yeah, well, here's the thing about that. You know, we're thinking that this is about a mortgage loan and real property. So we're traumatized if we're losing our houses, and we should be. Okay, don't get me wrong, we should be. But in the larger picture, that's really a small part of it. What they're really after here, you got to understand, what they did here was they stole our identity, and they put us into a transaction that was misrepresented, okay, as a lease agreement to a future repurchase. We are put into this transaction. We have a playing role in this transaction that we were never informed of. That an attorney came in, a nominating agent came in and kind of assumed our identity to play that role for us, right? Of course, he's not playing to our advantage, he's playing to his advantage, okay? And so what they're doing is they're pumping up annuities to our state, to our name. They're pumping up insurances. They're businesses. They're creating businesses by funding businesses. So there's revenue streams
And
created.
bonds.
There's
And
profit
bonds.
streams being created.
Bonds.
There's all sorts of things that are being created. But here's the thing. They can't collect on it until there is a default. Otherwise, it's, because you got to think of this, we're in this collective membership, okay? We've been there for decades, okay? This isn't something that hasn't just arisen in the last 20 years. This has been around for decades. It's just what they've done here within the 20 years to put it on steroids. But, you know, we've been funding government, funding bridges, funding roads, funding city councils, funding all these things for decades now. Where is our interest payment in that? Where is our cut of that? Because they're the ones that are borrowing our energy, our collateral value, the credit value of our soul. We've never put a security interest in any of these things to say, hey, I got an interest in that. I want to cash out on these things, right? And so that's basically what we're doing here. We're saying, I'm taking, you know, I understand. I'm with the knowledge now. I get this. I understand what's going on now. You guys have stolen my identity. You've stolen all the equitable balance of my energy, and you left me with a little sliver standing on this debt here. And that's why they want to foreclose upon people. That's why when people are getting foreclosed upon that have never defaulted, or that are purposely defaulted, you know, by somebody they have accepted payment, and then 3 months later, what happens after 3 months? They can file for default, and then you're screwed. But you never missed a payment, right?
Yeah.
They're doing that because they pumped up the annuities, they've pumped up the options, they pumped up their estate to such high value. Now they want to collect on that, but they can't collect on it until they stimulate.
Yeah, another thing.
Let me finish.
Yeah.
Let me finish. Let me finish. They can't do anything until they stimulate a default. So it goes into federal receivership. So now they can start going after those assets. So when they foreclose upon you and you think that's a mortgage loan, what they're really after is they just want that summary judgment so they can run patents and trademarks and file with the patents and trademarks, all patents and trademarks as your personal representative. That they can't find you, or you're incompetent, or you know you just won't sign the documents to clean out your estate. That's what this is all about. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to kind of throw a couple things out there. I mean, probably these people that are here are smarter than most people, but you know, one of the largest, I was working with a group of people who was, you know, getting people their houses, the title on their house, not this method, but another method. And one of the things that we had an FBI guy who actually was doing the behind the scenes work on the CUSIP numbers that were being used. And we found that one of the people that had a loan on their house, that the bank took out a $300 million loan on, and then took out a $300, you know, or $300 million life insurance policy on. So the thing is, like, they hope you're going to die, and they hope that they can get your house, because that's when they can harvest out all this capital that, you know, they've gotten. But the other thing too is, like, it has a lot to do with.
Well, they don't need you to die. They just need you to abandon your property.
Right.
To abandon
and then
your
they
property.
can.
So in other words, they just need to actually bankrupt you.
Right. So, I mean, it's like, they
That's
don't
what they,
really care what happens to you as long as, they get their stuff, right, that they've created off you.
no, they
And
don't.
what,
This is very, this is very
yeah,
evil. What's going on? It's extremely evil. It's impeding with our salvation. If you want to be, if you want to think of it spiritually,
yeah.
at the end of the day, this isn't complicated. At the end of the day, guys, it really isn't. I mean, yes, it's complicated to wrap your mind around new concepts, around these ideas, and think, no, it can't be that way. It is. It is that way, and you'll see that as we go through this. You're going to see how these patents come together. And it talks about exactly
Well,
what I'm
and
talking about. This is all made up shit, people,
yeah,
and it's all made up crap.
and it's also driver's licenses. I remember like 20 some odd years ago, I needed to get my name changed, right, back to my birth certificate name. And I had to pay
Mm-hmm.
$4,500, and the attorney was having a really hard time getting the judge to do it. Now I know why, because they couldn't harvest
Yeah.
all the stuff from my old name, right, that they had already set up. So this is like more about a banking thing versus, I couldn't figure out why it dragged on and on and on. It was like, I just want my name to be what was on my birth certificate. Why is a problem? Because I spent my whole life not with that
Yeah.
name, and that they wanted to
Right.
keep it in play. So, it's crazy, like how
Well,
you look at all this stuff, but a driver's license is the same thing. They take out a bond, they take out a life insurance policy, they hope at some point that you're going to get your license pulled, right? You're going to get your license suspended.
well,
Yeah.
here's the premise for that. I'm glad you brought up the driver's license, because there is a story to this. Believe it or not, there is a storyline, so to speak, to all this, and that is a method to the madness, so to speak. And as I've come to understand it, it makes sense, and it really is it's a perfect system. It really is. It's just the way that it's been set up, and the way that it's been hidden from us and concealed from us, and we're kept out of it. But I mean, the system itself is a perfect system, because we are the ones. It is our energy that is funding things. It is our energy that is creating things. But you know what? Here's the thing. I'm the inventor of my own life. But you have a lawyer or foreign agents, attorneys in business banking. They come and they've impeded with my rights of invention by making me a co-inventor to all these patents that I'm going to give all my rights away to. Okay, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do these things, and I don't have to do these things. It's not so. And there's no laws that can prevent me to do that, because you know why? Because when you're standing in patents and you look at these things and you look at what they're doing, you come to realize real quickly that all laws are ambiguous. There is no law. There is no law. How can there be law when you have a law firm, a business banking or whomever, design this hypothetical program for a mortgage loan that is not a mortgage loan, that is actually a conversion to a lease, and you're cutting up on all these different slices and pieces and everything and selling out to everybody else, but yet you're coming out in public as a public as a legal representative saying these are mortgage loans. It's bullshit. That's treason, for God's sakes. And so what you have here, these capricious ideas, these capricious whims of these attorneys, creating these ideas and these revenue streams and these things to generate more income or grow more businesses and grow more wealth for themselves, that are modeled into codes and statutes that are really just functioning as their business models. So how can you sit there and say that? How can you come in and call default on me when I got a million different slices of my equitable part out there spread all over the world? Right? How can you do that? That's not law. There's no law there. And so that's the one thing I learned real quick when I was looking at this stuff. It's like, and it's empowering to some degree. It really is, because you look around and you see things. You understand the world as it really is. You understand your value, and you understand a couple of things. You understand that it's not the government's fault. It is the government's fault, but the government, though, the employees and the infrastructure of the government, they're deceived as well. They think that we're deadbeats, lies, and cheats. You ask them a question, what do they say? Oh, you got to ask an attorney. Well, wait a second here. Our whole system has been turned upside down these past 20 years, and it's because we've been led down a path that goes nowhere. That's the rabbit hole. The true rabbit hole here is rabbit holes, in my opinion, rabbit holes dead end. Okay. This patents and trademarks don't dead end, because it has a lot of spider webs too, but it always comes back into a revolving circle. But these mortgage loans, that's a rabbit hole, because it doesn't exist. So here we are 20 years down the road on this fabricated illusion of a mortgage loan that doesn't exist. And they've been raping us and pillaging from us and through these patents and trademarks. I mean, we have to come back to some sort of truth there. And we got to realize how many times you want to bang your head in the door to realize you're not going to get anywhere in court, you know. And so what you're doing here is I call it widening the sphere of knowledge. You know, when you're in a court situation, you're in a limited sphere of knowledge. And what is that limited sphere of knowledge? It's within the confines of a debt, right? You signed this mortgage loan. You signed this, right? It's a debt. It's a debt collector, right? You're in this small. You've been confined to a small little sphere of knowledge. What we're doing here is we're just simply saying, wait a second here. I'm going to widen the sphere of knowledge because I have an understanding that you stole my name and all the equitable value of this thing is sitting over here and it originated out of patents and trademarks. So I'm going to widen the sphere of knowledge, and it's going to, you know, basically overrule anything that the court comes up with, because now I've got my whole equitable package here, right? My whole equitable package, no matter if it's $10 million, it's $500,000, it's $2, is going to easily offset whatever debt is owed, whatever that debt amount that is. So all we're doing is just balancing the books. That's all we're doing. And so, you know, you're not going to get that. You're not going to get to that in court. Why? Because you don't have standing. You don't have standing because you got that intermediary between you, that attorney that's standing next to you. The guy that gets smacked, they'll get bitch slapped. He's impersonating you, for God's sakes. That's what his job is. And that's what they're doing. And so another thing that we got to realize too, and that can be proven, is that the courts are rigged. The courts are taking their orders from foreign bank debentures agreements, which are recorded in patents and trademarks, which are these charging documents. So when you talk about bonds and, you know, arrests and all this shit, you talk about charging documents, right? This is all stuff that's laid out in foreign bank debentures that the banks are, that the court system operating. The whole judicial system's rigged. You know, years ago, what this is a secret system. This is a secret system of liens. You know, years ago, the courts castigated these things. You know, they hated them. So what they do, what the business banking do, they said, well, let's put the judges in the revenue stream. Let's give them annuities. And that's what they're doing here. So, you know, we've got to come to this world. We've really become, we can make changes here. We can change our world. We can change we have the power to change things. And the power to change things is in patents and trademarks. The power to change things is saying, listen, I want to correct the affected errors. And what's the affected error? The affected error is that deceptive trade practices. It violated my constitutional rights. I had knowledge of these things. I should have been given a disclosure of these things. It violates the very nature of what these are, what all this shit falls under, which is the 1883 Paris, let's get this right, 1883 Industrial Properties Protection Convention, Paris Convention. And what that convention is all about is about industrial property. That's all capitalized name. That your first, middle, last, that first certificate name. It's a vessel, but it's also an article of manufacture. This derivative name, Kenneth W. Dost, Kenneth W. Dost, that is a vehicle, a special purpose vehicle. So when you mention transportation, we're talking about special purpose vehicles. That's what we are. We are a vehicle. We are a vehicle that is transported by the airwaves, by the pipeline, by wireless, by other means, by road transportation, surface transportation, by futures commissions brokers, because they're protecting the securities that are on our vehicle. And that's how they move about. That's why we're the accommodating party, because everybody else is taking care of us, and we don't, and moving us about here and sending us here and there and all over the place. I exist right here. I'm standing right where I'm standing. This is me. You know, that's all those other slices out there. That's not me, but I have rights to those things. Why? Because one, you took them from me. It wouldn't have existed without me. And two, you're using that to control me. So what I'm doing by doing recording patents and trademarks is I'm saying, I'm identifying all these slices out there, and I'm saying, I want out. I'm opting out of this stuff. I'm terminating all contracts on the point of merge, and in fact, enough proton back to the certificate of birth, really. And they have to reverse it for us. They have to reverse it for us. It's called calling the hedge. You've heard that expression before. Hedge managers, right? Hedge funds. What are we doing? We're calling the hedge. And what does that mean? That means that they think they go through this whole process by using our name and building all this value and all these new corporations and government programs and all this stuff that they're doing, right? But we got to realize that we're the stock owners, people. We're the stock owners of these companies. We're the ones that are stock owners. Everybody else, they're all stockholders, right? We're the stock owners, okay? But they're betting that we're never going to figure this stuff out. We're never going to come forward with this. We're not going to figure out that we are the energy that's driving all these things, and that we have rights in all these things. So they just keep on doing what they're doing, and they amplify it because what do they want to do? They force us into foreclosure. They force us into abandonment of our estate. They won't let us do the secured party creditor things and all those other processes. You know, those things were great and wonderful in its time. Okay, but they impede upon that. You know, they won't. Now anybody who does that is a fraudster, is a sovereign citizen nut. You know, and those things are wrong because the whole system has changed. It's different now. Everything's a digital signature, so and everything's electronic. So all we have to realize is we got to understand who we are, and that we do have value, and we do have power, and that we got to get the hell out of the courts. The courts aren't going to help us. There's no way they can. We literally exist for the pleasures and profits of attorneys. Plain and simple. They're controlling the ball on everything. So by us recognizing who we are and going and finding in the right and proper place, we can derail all their contracts from them. And it's not that you know, you can't sit there and say, well, I don't know if I'm in this one. I don't know if I'm in that one. Well, how can I make a claim if I don't know if my name's not in trademarks and patents? It's not that. It's having the knowledge to understand that you are connected with that trademark. That somebody's got control over your name, and they're rehypothecated, and they're selling it, they're controlling it. There's an attorney. There's always an attorney there at the front that is controlling the whole ball game, right? And all the mail that should be, I come across patents, well, not patents, but trademark agreements that just blow my mind. One of them, a couple of them literally said something to the effect of this, is that the assignee, who they are, because they're the fake assignee, but the assignee has the right to open up the mail of the assigner and throw out whatever mail he wants to, and direct the mail to where he wants it to go. And that's what they're doing here. What they've done here is, because we're the investor of these things, what they're doing is they've taken control of us, right? And they're directing the flow of mail, where it goes, where the revenue streams go, where the payments go to, where the dividends go to. And they're delegating that mail system, and they're only keeping us in the loop on the debt side of this thing. You know, so you know. We got to get to the point where we recognize that the system is fixed, it's flawed. We've got to recognize the fact that, yes, these are things that we have to learn and understand. I've been studying this for 10 years. I don't expect people to study this for 10 years. And I started from scratch. I didn't know damn shit about any of this stuff. I started with nothing. I just 10 years, just devotion. You know, I want to get to people, to you guys, to understand this thing in a fraction of time. You know, I don't expect you to know all the patents and trademarks, and you know, you can't. I mean, patent and trademarks are very complex things. Hey, Malin, how you doing? How you doing, Dougie? These are very complex things.
Hey, Mr. Ken. Hey, so it was an hour class, so I know that you'll keep talking, so I'm here to make sure that you stay on time, just so that. And can we and we got to see your chest. I didn't want to stop you because you were on a roll, but nobody got to see your face. Just so you know, if you see the record, you were faceless. There you are. But I didn't want to disturb you.
Where'd I go? There I am.
There you are. You were just on a roll, and I didn't want to disturb you when you were on a roll. But to reiterate, we were born. We're like an original deposit to a bank. Our energy captured from us as a legal, or not a legal, but a birth registration or a birth certificate out at the hospital, and the signatories, the living matter signatories, were our parents, and they didn't know. Nothing was disclosed. And then that birth registration separated our spirit, our worth, our value, our soul from our living matter body. And they've been using that in ways of patents and trademarks and whatever else to actually create resources and revenue
Right.
and pay for roads and whatever else in this reality, as well
Right.
as,
Right.
so, does that
Right.
sound?
And understand, interject one thing. Understand, there's nothing you can file with the county that's going to change this thing over the state. It has to happen through patents and trademarks, because this is where all the contracts originate. This is the hub that everything comes out of. So all the powers that these attorneys have in your state to foreclose upon you and pull the actions they're doing on you, they're getting those, they're deriving those powers from these agreements that are in patents and trademarks, these assignment agreements. And I'll tell you one thing, it's going to surprise you. When we start getting into these agreements, you're going to find that none of them have anything to do with mortgage on the real property. None of them. They have to do with shoe manufacturers and car manufacturers and Samsonite luggage, for God's sake. All kinds of things that have nothing to do with real property, because it's not about real property. It's, the real property is not the transaction. The transaction here is the energy of your body and soul. And another thing you'll find within patents, and they describe, when you read patents, are pretty interesting. We're kind of like two halves of a substrate that have the potential of becoming a nuclear energy, an atomic energy, but for the fact that we're separated, okay? And that's where they keep us separated. So everything is, so we're the two halves of a substrate. We want to bring these two halves of the substrate together, fasten them together so that we're an atomic energy, meaning that we're going to merge our name. So that we're going to be, because in my case, I already put the filing in, and because it would have taken 5 days, but because of this, or 10 days, but because of this COVID, and government is operating on limited resources or whatever, limited offices, it's going to take 60 days. But anyhow, what I did was I did a merger of name. So I took Kenneth W. Dost, merged that with Kenneth William Dost, merge those with and to each other, the surviving entity, surviving name being Kenneth, upper lowercase, Dost, all uppercase. The other names go away. Why'd I do that? I did that because now I am truly inseparable. Now there's nobody that can get between me, right? I don't have a slash between there. I'm the Kenneth W. Dost, upper lowercase, slash Kenneth W. Dost, all uppercase. That slash is where that's the English common law that gets me in between. When I merge the names together, now I'm truly an individual personality, right? That is truly indivisible. And I have every right to do that. As a matter of fact, I can even show you the proof of where this is done to show you that I'm exactly right. And that has to do with, it's a multi-source agreement. They did the same thing. They took the LLC and a corporation, merged together. What's the same thing as taking our names and merging those together? And the surviving entity. The surviving entity being the one with all absolute rights, title, and interest. Why? Because now that person's inseparable and everything has to transfer to them. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. So anyway, we're coming to the end of the class. And what we decided,
Okay.
yeah, what we decided was that we'll do questions and answers at the first part of the next class, because we wanted people to actually look at the links on the website, the COE-LLC Ken Dost links that I put up blog. So it's there in the chat in case people need it. But we wanted people to kind of listen to what you had to say and then also look at those links, actually go down those rabbit holes, and then save their questions for the first part of the next class, right? And then we'll answer, have questions and answering for a while. And then we'll get into the second topic. So that we decided that would be the best way to do it.
And we're getting a second topic, we're getting a separate topic. Next topic we'll do is I'll guide you through the links so you can navigate them yourself, so you can kind of search for yourself to play. You have to play with this stuff to understand it. And that's what we'll do next time.
Well, and the other thing too, so so just pay attention too on my website, on the blog, because Ken will send me these links. I'll put them up on a blog, and then I'll actually have them, and then I'll do screen share on the next class for Ken while he does the talk.
Yeah, what I don't want to do is, I got so much information, so many documents, I don't want to confuse people though. But there's, if I could figure out a way to organize this to where it's actually, just self-defining, I'll do that. But it's hard to do. But I mean, I got so much evidence that will blow you guys away. Absolutely blow your minds. Just got to figure out how to share that part of it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so right now we're, I've committed to 4 classes. Ken and I decided that there may be more that need to happen. So we're just kind of open, and we're just starting from a spot to try to get the information out there and kind of reprogram even kind of common law people. I've been involved in common law for a long time, and we're taught to eradicate ourselves from that capitalized name, but then we're eradicating ourselves from our own wealth that's been generated. So I really appreciate, Ken's spin on this, because, I want it all. It's mine anyway. So I'd rather go down the rabbit hole and
Right.
and
Right.
learn kind of a new concept. So anyway, I'm going to end the class, everybody. And we'll see you again next Thursday. Hopefully you made it here, so you guys definitely have the links for the next one from the blog. But that's it. That's all I've got for you. Anything, last words of wisdom, Ken?
No, if I start up again, I'll go on.
Yeah,
for
I
another half
know.
hour, so
That's
I'm gonna
it.
shut up.
That's why I've got to, like,
Cut me off.
I got to cut you off just for your own sanity, my sanity, and everybody else's sanity.
Yes, yeah, you do.
All right,
You do. Shut
everybody.
up, Ken. Time's.
Yeah. All right, everybody.
you.
Have a great week. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.